Hey everyone, here we are at stage 25 of Cambridge Latin. In this video, we're going to go over the new grammar in stage 25, and then we're going to run through the model sentences, which are a little bit longer than usual, but it's important to get through them because there's a lot of little grammar points that are rather important there. So the new grammar for stage 25 is indirect questions. Now, in the past few stages, we've been talking about indirect statements, and indirect statements are formed with infinitives. Indirect questions, though, are going to be, in a way, a little bit easier to see and to translate because they've got subjunctives in it. So first of all, we need to talk about the difference between an indirect question and a direct question. And also, I'll probably mention the difference between this and an indirect statement versus a direct statement. So a direct question or a direct statement are just going to be independent clauses. And a direct statement doesn't have anything that introduces it besides, well, it's just an ordinary sentence. A direct question will have an adverb in it that will let you know that the sentence is interrogative. That is to say, it's asking a question, but it won't be reported. That is to say, it's going to directly state the question. It's not going to say that anyone else is asking that question. Now, that's a little bit confusing. But what I mean by that is a direct question is just, where's the book? So I'm asking directly where that book is. The book is going with that to be verb. So it would be in the nominative, and where is going to be the interrogative. Interrogative, in this case, adverb or interrogative adjective. You could have either. Anyway, you would have something that would indicate that it's a question. Now, an indirect question, just like an indirect statement, is going to be introduced by some verb of saying, thinking, perceiving. Really more in this case, in the case of indirect questions versus indirect statements, it's going to be a verb of asking. So, for example, I asked him where the book was. So notice that our main clause right here is I, that would be in the nominative, asked is the verb, and him's the direct object. Then we would have what would be the indirect statement. So it's the thing that he is or I'm asking indirectly, and that would be subordinated by an adverb, subordinating conjunction, or subordinating interrogative pronoun. So we'll see what how that looks, and we'll also note that everything in this indirect question is going to be in the subjunctive. So whereas an indirect statement, usually, not always, indirect statement is going to be formed with an infinitive, and we'll see that in practice as we go through this stage. So I'm not going to go through it too much. Okay, so the verb is, the sentence will be in two parts. The main clause, just as I said, with a verb of asking, wondering, or knowing. And the main verb is going to be in the indicative. The secondary verb, so the verb in the indirect question itself, is going to be in subordinate. So let's go ahead and see how that works. I asked is our main verb. And then the subordinate clause right here is going to be with the subjunctive. So rogawi, we get the word interrogate from rogo. So rogawi is a perfect verb. It means I asked, and I asked what? I asked what? So we're going to have an interrogative pronoun for that. So notice that quid right there. It's from quis. So it's the same type of word that would introduce a direct question. You could actually introduce a direct question with quis or quid. It means what. And then it's formed just like a direct question, except the verb right here is going to be in the subjunctive. So notice it's a pluperfect subjunctive. What your brother had done. So notice that this also wouldn't really make sense if this were a direct question. What your brother had done is not it can't stand by itself. You have to say, I asked what your brother had done. But you could form a direct question. So for example, what did you do? And that would also be introduced by a quid. So just look for the subjunctive followed by that interrogative adverb or interrogative pronoun, and also look for a verb of asking in the indicative. Okay, so let's see the difference right here. Direct question, quis hoc dixit. So notice that this quis is an interrogative adjective. Who said this? Who said this? Quis is the subject of dixit, and it is, dixit is, by the way, perfect tense, but it's indicative, a mood, and hoc is the direct object. So that's a direct question. Who said this? Now, nesciebat means he did not know. It's an imperfect indicative. He did not know who had said this. So he did not know who said this. Nesciebat is because if you're saying he did not know, because he didn't know, he's sort of a polite way of implying that he would like to know. So he did not know who said this. Notice that quis is the same for both direct and indirect questions, but you can tell that this quis introduces an indirect question because we have this indicative verb right before it, and then we have a pluperfect subjunctive verb inside of the indirect question itself. The structure between these two questions is otherwise the same. See, interrogative adjective, interrogative adjective. We've got a demonstrative pronoun in the accusative that's the direct object, same word. We even have the same verb from Deco. This is perfect tense though, this is pluperfect, and this is indicative versus subjunctive. All right, same thing here. Notice that cur iratis erat, why was he angry? Cur is interrogative adverb, and then erat plus a nominative, predicate nominative. Why was he angry? But notice erat is in the indicative. It's imperfect indicative from sum. And rogavimus, we asked, perfect tense indicative. We know that that's going to introduce an indirect question. Cur, same interrogative adverb right there. Why? Sm, he was iratus, angry. Sm, by the way, is going to be imperfect subjunctive for to be. So we're going to introduce that as well. We're going to see that it's a very, very common, very common word. So got to get used to seeing asem, assess, asset sort of words. It's because they're very, very common. Okay, that is all. There's an exercise here, but we'll go through that in class. There's also the other part of grammar that we are sort of reviewing is just generally formation and usage of the pluperfect and imperfect perfect subjunctive, but don't worry about that right now. So let's jump back all the way to these model sentences. So miles legiones secundae per castra ambulabat. So the soldiers, and then we've got two genitives here, of the second legion, then per castra, through the camp, ambulabat, were walking. So the soldiers of the second legion were walking through the camp. Castra is a military word. Subito, suddenly, ignotum unm, so an unknown youth, prope horium, near the granary, so the place where they store grain, hiding. So this is a present active participle that's modifying youth. So suddenly a unknown youth near the granary, hiding, conspexit, perfect tense indicative, he saw. Actually, this would be one soldier, pardon me. Miles is one soldier. Could be plural or could be singular. In this case, we know it's from context that it is one. So a soldier of the second legion was walking through camp. Suddenly, he saw an unknown youth hiding near the granary. Also notice that we had that wonderful encircled word order. So this attentum is going with euenum, but the prope horium is nested in between the noun and its adjective to let you know that he's hiding near the horium, not that the soldier saw him near the horium, the granary, that is. Eus tu, hey you, clamaut miles, shouted the soldier, quis es, who are you? So notice that, by the way, this is a direct question, and we can always tell direct questions because they're set apart by these little quotation marks. Quis es, who are you? Euenus neither responded. The youth, nothing responded. So the youth responded nothing, or he said nothing. Miles juventum ithrum rogabit quis esset. Okay, here we go. Notice that there's something a little bit strange. We've got another quis and we've got an esset, which, as we just established, is an imperfect subjunctive. So the soldier asked the youth again, it's an adverb, who he was. So he asked who he was. Notice that there's no quotation marks. So this isn't a direct question. We have a verb of asking, we have an interrogative adjective, and then we have an imperfect subjunctive. So this is an indirect question. The youth fled, Juvenis fugit. Miles Juvenem petiuit, et facli superabit. So the soldier, the youth, sought and easily overcame. So what that means is that the soldier, he went after the youth and easily overcame him. And so he chased him, and he made sure that he captured him. So that's what we have right there. Not the most nice image, I suppose, but the ancient world was very, very aggressive one. Also notice that the Roman soldiers in these in the more cold northern regions would wear these sort of pedal pusher pants. They generally thought that pants were something that barbaric people wore. So they didn't wear full pants, but they had these sort of 3/4 length pants. They also wore socks with sandals. It's not depicted here, but it was a thing. Some of them, a couple of them, have actually survived. We have Roman period socks, probably the longest pair of unwashed socks in history. Anyway, so forcifer exclamavit prope horium facis. So thief, he exclaimed, what quid facis are you doing prope horium, near the granary? Notice that that's a direct question because it's got those quotation marks. Juvenis dicere nolibat quid prope horium faceret. This is a pretty complex sentence right here. So the Juvenis is our nominative subject. Then we've got an infinitive here. So we have to hold that in our minds. And then we have nolibat, he was not wanting. So the youth, to speak, he was not wanting. Literally what it says, left to right. So we would say the youth was not wanting. He did not want to tell quid, what, and then prope horium, near the granary, faceret, imperfect subjunctive, he was doing. So what we have here is nolo is taking a complementary infinitive, and that dicere is it's a verb of saying, so it's introducing an indirect question. Quid right here is subordinating, and faceret is the subjunctive verb with it. So the youth did not want to tell what he was doing near the granary. Miles eum ad centurionem duxit. So the soldier led him to the centurion. Centurion is an officer, someone who's in charge of a group of soldiers in the Roman military. You can always tell because they have this thing on the top of their helmet. It's called a comb, and it goes not front to back, but side to side. Alrighty, centurio Juvenem conspicatus hunc agnosco inquit. So the centurion, having seen the youth, so after he saw the youth, this is a perfect passive participle, but it is from conspicuere, which is deponent, which is why it is translated actively, and that's why it also is taking direct object. So the centurion, having seen the youth, inquit, said, hunc agnosco, I recognize him. Hunc is a direct object, means this guy. I recognize this guy. Explorator Britannicus est, quem saepe prope castrum conspexi. So it is, or he is, a explorator, is sort of like a British scout. He's a British scout. We get the word explorer from that. Quem, whom, this is a relative clause that's describing him, whom, conspexi, I saw often. So whom I have seen often, prope castra, near the camp. So notice that quem is the direct object of conspexi, but it's still describing the British scout. So he is a British scout whom I've often seen near the camp. Quomodo eum capisti. So quomodo means how. How did you? Perfect tense indicative verb. How did you capture eum, him? How did you capture him? Tum, then, miles explicavit, then the soldier explained, quomodo, how, juvenem capiscit. So quomodo here is going to introduce an indirect, really it's an indirect question. indirect question, indirect statement, if you will, there's a lot of overlap in indirect speech between using subjunctives and using infinitives. You'll get used to it the more you see. So then the soldier explained how he had captured the youth. So pluperfect subjunctive. Centurio ad juvenem conversus. So the centurion, having turned to the youth, cur in castra venisti. Why did you come into the camp? So why? Cur is their interrogative adverb that introduces a direct question. Rogavit, he asked. So notice that even though we've got rogavit here, because it's inside these quotation marks and the verb is not a subjunctive, it's going to be just direct speech. Juvenis tamen tacebat. The youth, however, was silent. Centurio ubi cognoscere non poterat cur Juvenis in castra veniset, militum iusit eum ad carcerem ducere. So the centurion, and then we have a temporal clause here introduced by ubi. We're getting used to seeing cum being used as a temporal clause, but we go to ubi here. When poterat, he was not able, cognoscere, to learn, that's a complementary infinitive with possum. When he was not able to learn, and then cognoscere is introducing an indirect question with cur, why. When he was not able to learn why the youth, veniset, pluperfect subjunctive, had come in castra, into the camp. He usit, this is our main verb right here. So centurio is the subject of it. The centurion ordered the militem. The militum is not exactly a direct object, but rather this is an indirect statement now that we have. It's the accusative subject of ducere. See, he ordered the soldier to lead eum, that's our direct object of ducere, him, ad carcerem, to prison. So this is probably the most complex sentence that we've seen yet. And this is very indicative of the type of sentence you'll see in original Latin. So notice that our main sentence is just really the main clause is centurio usit, the centurion order. That's our main clause. Then we have everything between these two commas is a temporal clause subordinated by ubi. And inside of that temporal clause, we have a verb that is taking a complementary infinitive, and that complementary infinitive is introducing an indirect question. And then also in our main clause, we have an indirect statement that is triggered by a verb of saying, and then that indirect statement itself is governed by an infinitive. So altogether, this is centurion, when he was not able to learn why the youth had come into the camp, ordered the soldier to lead him to prison. All right, almost done. The Juvenis postcom verba centurionis audivet ego sum vercobrix inquit, filius principis decianglorum. So the youth, and then we have everything between these two commas as a temporal clause, after he audivet, that's an indicative verb in the perfect, after he heard the verba centurionis, the words of the centurion, so the centurion's words, he inquit, that's our main verb, he said, ego sum vercobrix, I am vercobrix. The son, this is by the way an appositional phrase to vercobrix, the son, principis, of the king, of the chief, decianglorum, of the decianglii. So we have this noun is an apposition to vercobrix. So he is the son, and then he's the son of whom? Possessive genitive, son of the prince. And then what kind of chieftain is he? He's the chieftain of the decianglii. So we get two separate genitives there. Vobis non decorum est me in carcere tenere. This is our old friend in terms of construction. It is a dative plus a adjective plus est plus an infinitive. So it is not, non est decorum, right, vobis, for you, tenere, to hold, me, in prison. So it's not right for you to hold me in prison. Filius principis decianglorum. And so this is a question, direct question, just from tone. The son of the chieftain of the Decianglii exclaimed, the centurion, libentissime te video. So I see you very gladly. So I very gladly see you. He's saying that I'm so happy to see you, basically. It's a superlative adjective, by the way. Nos te Deo quaerimus calamque optimum tibi in carcere paravimus. So we've been looking for you. Perfect tense. We've been looking for you. So nos is our subject. Te is the direct object. We've been looking for you. Diu, that is an adverb, for a long time. Calamque, optimum. So everything, the word right before the que actually goes after the que when we translate it. And paravimus, and we have prepared a calam optimum. So the very best cell for you, Tibi. That's a dative of advantage, I suppose. We've prepared the best cell for you in carcere, in prison. Okay, that was a little bit longer of a video than I was hoping to make, but hopefully it answered all your questions. I will see you in the next video with one of the first long translations.